Welcome to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Townsend Guard. I'm a law professor, and I just want to quilt. Today we're talking to Todd Purcell of Superior Thread. He is going to tell us all about thread, but he's also going to tell us about his mom and dad and how Superior Thread started. And he's even going to tell us a little bit about bobbins and different types of thread. I know it sounds really exciting. It actually really is exciting. So this was a great conversation. Can you just say hi one more time?
Yep, no problem. Hello.
Oh, it's a beautiful hello.
Is that good?
It's great. So what I thought I'd do today, I'm going to ask you, I would like to learn all about threads today. So we need a thready education. We start the interview usually with the same first question. So I'll ask you that, and then we'll just chat about whatever you'd like to chat about. I'd like to know more about the company, about threads, about what we should understand about it. The point of the project is really to understand the quilting industry. And so what I'm trying to understand is both from like the average person side, what should we understand about threads, but also from your side of sort of how important is the brand, how do you protect, what are the mechanisms that matter to your company in terms of your competition, in terms of patents or trademarks or anything else like that, just anything that we to better understand who you are and what you do. That's kind of the goal of the project. Does that sound okay?
Excellent. It sounds like a great series of questions.
Yeah, and so this will be public, but if there's anything that we talk about that you don't want public, you just say that to me either during the interview or even after. If later you think, you know what, I'd rather not have that as part of the interview, that's good too. And then when we turn off the interview, if there's anything else you want to chat about, we can do it after the audio is off. So whatever way you want to. Some people.
Okay, excellent. So if anything's off the record, we can be off the record.
It would be literally off the record. Yes, off the recording. Yes, exactly. Suddenly, all those phrases actually make sense, right? That it's off the record.
Yep.
All right, cool. So let's begin with tell me who you are and where you are chatting from us. Where are you right now?
My name is Todd Purcell, and I am chatting with you from St. George, Utah.
Awesome. And that's where your company is based, right?
Correct. Our headquarters is based here.
And you are Superior Threads. So tell me, the first question we're going to ask before we ask about your company is, do you have a memory, or what's your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life?
Oh, that's great. My mother, when we were children, so I was born in Japan, and my parents were English teachers, and they spent about 10 years in Japan. And I remember my first memory has to be my mom. I don't know, I guess she was making clothes, and I was just amazed at the sound that the sewing machine was making, and was just really in awe and had no idea, couldn't understand or comprehend the mechanics of it. But that's my earliest memory, was just hearing this machine going and just being amazed that you could create something from a machine. I guess if you want to say, that's my earliest memory. That's
really cool. I still feel like the sound of the machine is one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. I don't know something about
it's such a. It's like when you hear an engine turnover in a vehicle, you know exactly what it is. It doesn't matter what make or model or brand it is. You know that it's the car engine, and that's why I felt like the sewing machine is. Doesn't matter the make or the model. That mechanical sound, like that's the imprint.
Right. So tell me how Superior Threads got started.
The Superior Threads was started by my parents. They were English teachers, as I said, in Japan for many years. And when we moved from Japan, we moved to Hawaii, and that's where my dad would commute back to Japan for his English schools. And living in Hawaii, my parents wanted to come back to mainland America, and there was a few requirements. Being in Japan and then in Honolulu, they had a lot of big city experience. So they wanted a very small city in America, wanted no snow, and they wanted like a sense of community. And they came over. My father's parents lived in Salt Lake City, so they came over Salt Lake City kind of as their starting home base. And there was a few places in Arizona that they really wanted to go look at. Well, taking I-15 south from Salt Lake City, you pass through this small town called St. George. It's 4 miles away from Arizona, and they stayed the night here, and they never went to Arizona. They liked it so much that this is where they decided they wanted to move. So they moved here, kind of no job, looking at what are our next adventures. And my mom, through some association with friends she made here, started attending a quilt class at a local quilt shop and found that she had a talent and really enjoyed quilting, and ended up being asked to teach a few quilting classes. And then she got hired on at the store. And she noticed that there wasn't a whole lot of good thread offerings for quilters. This is in the mid-90s. There was just like a generic cotton thread or a very generic polyester thread, and some shiny embroidery threads. There wasn't something that really catered to quilters as a high quality offering. And through that store association, they were able to meet someone who had worked in the quilting industry. And my parents, having kind of that entrepreneurial bug in their system from just moving to Japan and teaching English and opening up their own English schools, they said, hey, I think this is an opportunity that we can do. We could create some thread for the quilting industry, which was a super novel idea. And I still think it is a novel idea.
That's really interesting. But they didn't have, like, how did they, I'm sure you can continue on the story, but I'm really curious, like, okay, so you say, okay, there's no good thread, I'm going to make thread. How did they even think about, like, how do you go about thinking about making thread? Because clearly they didn't have a background in thread making, right? So what did they do next?
No background in textile.
It's amazing.
Probably their background was in not having fear of failure. I think kind of through this association with another gentleman who had worked in the quilting industry, as well as being so familiar with Japanese business and understanding that Japan still had a very, very strong textile industry. Japan's textiles, from weaving and spinning and twisting, as well as filament manufacturing, is very well known. And I think it was just kind of this perfect combination of my dad feeling very comfortable with Japanese business, as well as kind of this opportunity here where they said, maybe we can go to Japan and we can find, the mills or the factories or the producers, and together we can work to make something happen. And the reason why Japan is important in this story, there's a few American thread manufacturers. There's not that many, what we call like the true vertical integration, where they take where they start with raw material and then they go through the entire processing and the dyeing and the winding and the packaging in America. It's not prevalent, and especially the textile mills of yore were all in the South. There's really not that many left. And on a visit, on visit and conversations with a few of these mills, my parents are talking about, hey, we want to make a higher quality thread. We know quilters, they don't like a lot of lint. Larum quilting hadn't really started to take off, but it was kind of a baby in the industry, and it puts a lot more tension on the threads. And the reaction from the American manufacturers at the time were kind of like, they give you the menu and they say, sorry, these are the threads we make. You can take it or leave it. And if you want to do a private label, you can, but this is what we do. And Japan, when they went over to Japan and met with the textile mills and manufacturing facilities, it was like a total a la carte experience. It says, well, yeah, you can start with this fiber, and then this is the processing we can do for it. But just understand that it's going to be really expensive. So producing in Japan, how we started, was more of a challenge because of the cost of thread. So the mindset for sewists and for quilters was, we'll just go to my local quilt shop, we'll go to the chain store and you buy your serger thread that you're going to use for quilting. You're going to spend, like, no one ever spends $10 on a spool of thread back then. But that was, in order to get the quality, the cost to produce it was just so much greater. But that was the direction that my parents wanted to pursue. They firmly believed that if you can have a quality product, you're able to eliminate like 50% of all sewing problems, of all quilting problems, if you just start with a quality product. And that was the business decision that was made and that was went with. And that's really how the company started. And that was the first big emphasis of the thread lines, which were created.
Well, how did they know? So I just can imagine, like, your I'm trying to picture your parents. Like, how do they know what kind of thread they want to produce at that very first time? Like, and how do they gain that knowledge and then get it into the, how do they get that first, how do they start? The starting part always seems very difficult to me.
Yeah, so the first thread line we ever carried was a metallic thread. And metallic thread, still to this day, unfortunately, has kind of a bad reputation for being a very difficult thread. So one of our manufacturing partners that we teamed up with, they had created a high strength metallic thread that had all the benefits that people love. They love the shininess. They love the colors. This facility has created a stronger type of metallic thread that can be used in the stitching of ceremonial kimono in Japan. And when you're working on heavy silk or tight weave silk material, and you have to go through dent stitching, through a lot of interfacing, you need to have a really strong thread. And that was the first product that we had. Was, okay, we had proof that you can put this particular metallic thread kind of just through the rigors. Mm-hmm. You know that it's going to be a great product. So we can adapt it and use it on a high-speed machine for quilting applications. And we feel confident that it's going to work because we know the quality is there.
Yeah. So did they test it on, like, was there a testing process or and then it got into the market, and how did it do on the market?
Yeah, so there was a pretty rigorous testing process. By this point, the inner circle of influence from quilters had grown exponentially through networking and through just similar hobbies. Something that is absolutely profoundly true in the quilting industry is it's a very friendly industry, and people are always willing to help other quilters. Yeah. So there was a lot of real end user testing with the products. Also, just a lot of battery of standard like ISO testing that had happened, and so it debuted in the market. And we're a brand new company, 1999, 1998. We're so excited. We got this metallic thread, and people are like, "Oh, I never quilt with metallic. It breaks all the time." Or, "I love metallic thread, but it is the most garbage thread ever because it's so poor quality." So in hindsight, it was probably a really hard product to launch the company with because it had such a poor reputation, because it was a lot of the metallic at that time was just poorly produced. There